Before we get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the content that is released by Go Collect. And if you're interested, head over to Regie Collects here on YouTube. Welcome back to another episode of the weekly speculation recap video from Go Collect. My name is Regie, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, as well as the host of this show. This one is going to be a solid episode as I have 6 fantastic articles from bloggers all across the US that I'm going to review. Stay tuned for the video. This first blog post from Matt Tuck is actually a pretty interesting one because let me read you the headline. It says, Batman's new villain coming soon, but don't get too caught up in the hype. From that headline, you might think that he's actually talking about Punchline, the newest villain that was revealed a couple of weeks ago, but it's actually not Punchline. There is actually another villain that is going to be coming, and he actually is talking about the Clown Hunter. In Matt's article or his blog post, he's basically saying, check it out. There is Punchline. There's another character that is coming called the Clown Hunter. But don't get too carried away with spending too much money on these books. And it's actually a pretty interesting cautionary tale that he is essentially telling in this blog post. And he takes a look at the recent appearances of Punchline as a little bit of some evidence to say that we might need to take a hard look at some of the speculative hype that surrounds this particular character and even other characters for that matter. But if you did not know, the origin story for Punchline will be revealed in the upcoming Batman number 96, as well as the origin of Punchline as well. But as I mentioned, it's a little bit of a cautionary note here. In the article, Matt points out that Batman 89, there have been 19 recorded sales of this particular comic since February 29th. And he says that these 19 sales have all been graded 9.8s. He highlights that none of these books have actually sold for less than 3 figures. The highest so far was $175, basically giving Batman 89 a fair market value of $141 as of March 10th. He goes on to highlight that 3 of the last 4 sales have actually been for $133 or less. And he kind of makes the point here that this book may be on a decline, that the values of this book may actually be coming down. And he says if something dramatic doesn't actually happen with the Punchline character, this book could be under $100 very soon. You might want to take a look at this blog post and see whether there's some tidbits there that you need to consider before you hand over your hard-earned money. The link to this blog post, as well as all the others that I'll be talking about, are down in the description. In this next blog post, Norman actually takes a look at the cameo appearances and also second appearances of some pretty hot characters. And this is actually one of those things that subscribers of my channel have often asked me about is what happens to the values of second appearances? Is it worth investing in second appearances, right? Because everyone knows that first appearances tend to go up in value, but what about those cameos? What about those second appearances? And so Norman actually takes a look at 3 books that are associated with a pretty hot movie that has been pushed back because of COVID-19. And I'm specifically talking about The Black Widow. So in this article, he takes a look at 3 books. One of them is a cameo appearance. The other 2 are second appearances. The first book is Avengers number 195, which is the cameo appearance of the Taskmaster. And at a 9.8, the cost of this book is $195 and has a 6-month return that's actually positive. It's actually an 11% return over the course of 6 months. Unfortunately, the story is not positive for the next 2 books that we're going to be looking at, specifically the second appearance of the Red Guardian in Avengers number 44. This book at a 9.8 recently sold, or has a cost, I should say, of $1,499, its 6-month return is actually a negative 22%. And the very last book that Norman examines is Tales of Suspense number 53 at an 8.0. This is the second appearance of the Black Widow. This book has a cost of $375, and it also unfortunately has a 6-month return that is negative 22%. And so while I don't know if this is an exhaustive exercise, right? I don't know if we can definitively say that cameo appearances have better returns and second appearances always have negative returns. I think that this is an interesting analysis that Norman performed that might require us to spend a little bit of time looking at some additional examples before we can make some definitive statements. But because the Black Widow movie and the characters that are associated with Black Widow are all hot right now, I think this was a great blog post and a great way to kind of examine what is happening right now. But I would definitely encourage you to read this blog post, to give it some thought, and to maybe even crunch some additional numbers by pulling down some data from Go Collect. The link to this blog post, as all of the others, are in the description. Recently on my channel, I released a video in which I talked about the blue ocean and the red ocean. And if you haven't seen this video, I definitely encourage you to go by the channel, take a look at it, because I try to present some interesting facts there, but I'll give you a little bit of a snippet here. The idea is that the red ocean is the bloody waters of competition, where there is a lot of hype and a lot of noise around specific books. And because of that, the prices of those books tend to creep up. But from a speculator standpoint, there could be some advantages to not fishing in those waters, but potentially finding some blue waters, some calmer waters where there is less competition and where prices are not as high, where you may be able to pick up some killer books because no one is really paying attention to those characters or those titles at the time, right? Because not everything is in the limelight. And so I think that this video that I released actually inspired this next blogger by the name of Ariel, who wrote this article entitled Blue Ocean Books. And in this article, he basically asked the question of whether some of these books might be blue ocean territory. So Ariel highlights a handful of books in this blog post, and I definitely encourage you guys to go read this in its entirety so you can see what his logic is, as well as some of the pricing information that he points out. But the very first book that he highlights here is Tales of the Teen Titans number 44. And this book definitely has some good things going for it, with Nightwing and Jericho and Deathstroke all appearing in this particular book. And he highlights that recent sales show this book being sold, graded at a 9.6 for less than $100. That is not a raw price, that is a graded price. And so if you're a fan of Deathstroke or Nightwing, this might be a book that you want to take a look at. The next book that Ariel looks at is Iron Man and Submariner, the one-shot. This is a fantastic book that I own 2 copies of. I enjoyed reading this book. I definitely feel that this book is undervalued, especially if Namor ever makes an appearance in the MCU. So if you believe that to be true, if you're a Namor fan, if you're an Iron Man fan, this might be a book that you want to take a look at because it's definitely undervalued. Ariel goes on to talk about several other books, including Superman Batman Annual number 4, which is the first appearance of Batman Beyond in continuity. And he also talks about the silent issue of G.I. Joe, that being issue number 21, another book that I own in my collection. And this might be one that you want to take a look at, again, if you believe that there could be something that happens with G.I. Joe down the road, or if you just happen to be a G.I. Joe fan. My general feeling is that many of the books that the blogger highlights really are some blue ocean books. So I definitely want to encourage you to take a look at this blog post because there might be some great opportunities for you here. 6 Modern Comics on the Move is the title of this next blog post from Matt Tuck. And as the name communicated, Matt takes a look at 6 modern comics that are moving on up the Go Collect hottest book Index. And so if you're into modern comics, this might be a blog post that you want to take a look at. These 6 books aren't necessarily terribly expensive, but they are moving up the list, and if they continue to do so, then that means that there could be some dollars that follow. So if you own these books, pay attention because it may be a selling opportunity, and if you don't own these books, now might be a buying opportunity so that you can sell a little bit later. So the very first book that Matt actually takes a look at is Hulk #1. And this is actually a book that we've spoken about here on the channel in the last few weeks. But Hulk #1 is currently sitting at the 36th place on the list. Now here's what's crazy. It's actually moved up more than 1,000 places on the list. And this is really fueled by all of the speculation that the Red Hulk could make an appearance in the upcoming She-Hulk streaming program on the Disney Channel. And so if you believe that there's something there, you might want to take a look at this one. Another book that you might be interested in is currently sitting at the 79th place. This is Bloodshot #1, the first chromium cover ever created. This book, as you guys know, is pretty hot right now because Bloodshot is currently in theaters. And so again, Bloodshot #1, currently sitting at the 79th spot, has actually moved up 900 places on the list. And so again, 6 different books are highlighted in this article. I only covered 3 of them. I want to encourage you to check out this blog post so that you can see what else made the list. So I have to read the intro to this next article to you because I think it's really well written. It says, John Constantine is a superhero like no other. He is a drinker, a smoker, pessimistic, antisocial, and has tried suicide as an alternative to therapy. The blogger has written this article entitled Raising the Dead, the Saga of Swamp Thing #37. So hopefully that intro captures your attention and encourages you to take a look at this one. The blogger highlights here that there could be some magic that might happen with John Constantine down the road. He feels like this character is an underused character that for some reason or another could potentially make his way into DC's dark universe. And as part of this article, the blogger highlights some interesting returns on this particular book. And he looks at 9.8s all the way down to 5.0s. And as he does so, he highlights that this book has some pretty healthy returns, ranging from about 4% all the way up to about 27%. So you have a 9.8 that costs $6.99 that again has a positive return of 27%. A 9.2, $189, it has a return of about 17%. So if you believe that maybe John Constantine has a future and some things that DC is planning, you might want to take a look at this book. So in this very last blog post, the blogger takes a hard look at some comics that are not necessarily in the limelight right now for one reason or another, and kind of puts it out there that now might be the time to actually pick these books up. And this is a blog post that I think is really well written, and it gets us to look at things in a slightly different way. And so I definitely dig it for that. The very first book that the blogger highlights is Marvel Special Edition #15. And this book is very closely tied to the new Shang-Chi movie. And he highlights here that this movie and the speculation around this movie have kind of been all over the place because from one day to the next, there are all of these rumors about first production shots being released and then next day the production being shut down. And so that could be having some negative effects on the particular book, on this Marvel Special Edition #15. The blogger highlights here, since the beginning of September, 11 of the 15 CGC grades between 9.8 and 4.0 have seen a decline in purchase price, with only grades in the 4.0 to 5.5 range seeing any kind of positive returns. He highlights here that a CGC 9.0 copy that sold for $1,200 at the end of July only went for $500 $179 in its most recent sale in February. He highlights here that if things pan out with the movie, that there is a lot of room for growth because these books, all of them across many of the grades, are actually depressed. And so if you like movie speculation, this book could be one that you want to take a look at. So there you have it. We have reached the end of another weekly recap video, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video and for joining me on this journey that we've been on. And I definitely want to encourage you, if you have the time, to head over to gocollect.com. There is a ton of other blog posts that are posted to the website that you will probably enjoy. Take care.